Welcome on to Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and this time I made sure to hit the record button, so that's not a waste of time, so that's good. Double checking. All right, we're good. And today, third day in a row here, we are celebrating the NFL Combine, which should be starting tomorrow. And today's episode has a theme, as all three of these episodes, these three mock drafts have had themes. And I will continue to do some crazy trades as I did with the first mock draft, so I should put maybe down into the links or something in the description, links to the previous videos. So you can check those out if you have not yet. I don't know how well this title will end up making it into my description for the video or anything like that, but it's called When Big Names Fall, Teams Make Big Moves. So we are going to have some big moves for some big fallers throughout the mock draft. And we're just trying to look at some fun situations. I really, really like how this mock draft ended up. And the main thing here is that I cannot make the same draft pick as either of my other previous draft picks from this week's mock draft. So limiting myself in that sense, trying to force myself to get creative, go out of the box, find out what some other avenues are for these teams to possibly go in that we don't normally go with. So we'll start off this mock draft. I guess I can hit start draft with the first pick for Tennessee here. I'm probably forgetting to introduce something, but hopefully it'll come up, and I'll introduce it as we go along. As far as Tennessee goes, we are on the clock, and you hear that? The phone's ringing. I don't know if I'm actually going to add in. This is going to be really weird if I don't actually add in any ringtone sounds, but I think I can pretty quickly add in some ring sounds. So there should have been a phone ringing, and that phone call is coming to us from the Las Vegas Raiders, and they're going to offer us pick 6, 37, 68, and I think a future second. I just put round 2, but that should say a 2026 round 2. I assume for the first pick of the draft. Las Vegas is going to be coming up, and Las Vegas Raiders have already drafted Shedeur Sanders and Tedorola McMillan, so those two are not allowed. I will introduce each of the teams, players that I'm not allowed to draft for these teams as we go along. And so Las Vegas has moved up here for Cam Ward. There's really not a whole lot to say here. My logic here behind this trade is just that, Las Vegas kind of got passed over last year, missed out on all of the quarterback fun, and they're just going to say, we're not allowing that to happen this year, and they're going to go get their guy, and that's going to be Cam Ward here. Cleveland has already drafted Shedeur Sanders and Abdul Carter, so I think that kind of just leaves us with one option, Travis Hunter, which, I don't hate that if Cleveland goes that route here. Obviously, I would be fine with that. Travis Hunter is my highest ranked player. Well, it just froze, so hopefully that doesn't happen again, because restarting after 2 picks isn't anything crazy, but as we go along, that gets really annoying to have to do. So, New York Giants are up on the board next. They've already drafted Cam Ward and Jackson Dart, so no quarterbacks, it looks like, for us, and instead, we're going to go with Abdul Carter. I do have to explain this one probably a little bit because, hey, they've already got one highly drafted edge rusher in Kayvon Thibodeau, one they just traded for last year, who is Brian Burns, one of the best in the league. Kayvon Thibodeau is in his final year of his contract. There's a 1-year club option as well, could be 2 years. But instead of having to pay him when the time would come, you're going to get your successor and have a mean rotation for this year. And the plan would probably be to send Thibodeau to a contender at the midpoint of the season before the trade deadline to get some good value out of him to a team that, is looking to add a little pass rush, a little 1 or 2 year rental onto their team. Would make a lot of sense, unless, of course, you happen to be a contender yourself, New York, in which case, once again, you got a mean rotation then. I was going to bring us on to pick 4. New England's already drafted Will Campbell, Will Johnson, and Josh Connerly Jr., not that he would go this high, but Will Campbell, Will Johnson off of the board for us. We're going to end up going Mason Graham here. Could have gone Tedorola McMillan, Ashton Genty, whatever. We've got plans, so we are pushing those off. Like I said, some big names will fall, and teams will make some big moves to make that happen. So at pick 4, New England, going to end up going with Mason Graham. Jacksonville is up on the clock, and we're looking around at this board. We're not super excited about anything here, but we'll probably grab... Look at that, the phone rang. What I wrote down was that just as Jacksonville was ready to turn the card into the commissioner, the phone rang, and the Jets got anxious, and they're going to be offering picks 7 and 42 to move up to 5 and receive 70 back in return there. So 7 and 42 for 5 and 70. The value is good, and frankly, Jacksonville was on the tilt after Mason Graham went one spot ahead of him anyways, had been planning on taking him, and then he got taken right from under your feet. So the New York Jets move on up here, and they are going to take Shedeur Sanders. Tennessee Titans are back on the board. Cam Ward, Mason Graham are not being able to be taken. By the way, the New York Jets would not have been able to take Tyler Warren or Will Campbell with that pick. Of course, they weren't trading up for those picks. So at pick 6, the Titans are back up on the board. Cam Ward, Mason Graham cannot be drafted by them. Was the Titans' plan to fall back and still get their quarterback foiled by the Jets? I don't know. Maybe they're on tilt for this one. Maybe not. Maybe he's next up on their big board. I don't have a tight end as a high-end need for them, but they 100% have room to add Tyler Warren into their tight end room on their team. And honestly, he'd put Chig probably in a better place to succeed as more of a weapon, big slot, move tight end kind of stuff for him. I'd like that role for him, just to be a little bit more free with him. So I really do like the addition of Tyler Warren to Tennessee. Not something that I have ever, thought of exploring, because they're just usually in a different spot in the draft. But given this situation and everything, I kind of like that, depending on how the quarterback situation ends up working out for them too. And that's going to bring Jacksonville on the clock here. Travis Hunter, Mason Graham cannot be drafted. Moments ago, I was about to pick Will Johnson for them. I didn't quite let you know where I was going, but it was going to be Will Johnson, and that was going to be over Jahdae Barron and Walter Nolan. Those were the three names I was kind of deciding between. Nothing has really changed, so we're just going to go with Will Johnson still. And then Carolina's on the board, and Jalen Walker, Jahdae Barron have been the previous draft picks for them, so we will not be drafting them. Instead, we will take Kenneth Grant. So Kenneth Grant is available, is our pick here at pick 8. There is an abundance of defensive line and edge rusher depth on days 2 and 3 of the draft. Not so much specifically at the nose tackle spot. So Carolina pays a slight premium to literally fill that hole on their defense, and then they'll fill in the other spots with what they think is going to be a better value, at least later on in the draft. So I do like that kind of strategy from them. Could be something that they could, I don't want to call it overthink, because I don't hate the strategy, but could be something that they would decide to do. That's probably about as high as I've seen Kenneth Grant. Pick 9, New Orleans. I've already drafted Tetairoa McMillan and Michael Williams, so we cannot take them. Instead, we will draft Will Campbell to them. You can't go wrong drafting offensive linemen. There's really not a whole lot to really explain here. There's still some room for some offensive line help in New Orleans, and once again, you can never go wrong doing that. Chicago, Mike Green, Calvin Banks Jr. cannot be drafted here. So instead, we will stick with an edge rusher in Michael Williams. For the most part, I tried not even drafting within the same position if I've already drafted in the previous 2 days a position. I tried kind of getting a little bit more unique than that too, but not always. And so this is one of those situations where we still ended up going edge rusher based on the board. And Chicago could go a lot of routes with this pick, and it'd be tough to argue against any of those routes too, unless they get real crazy with it. San Francisco at pick 11, Kelvin Banks Jr., Abdul Carter. They've already taken, cannot take them. Abdul Carter long gone. But that is going to leave Mike Green available for them since he couldn't go previously. And so, Mike Green to San Francisco. I like the fit. It's nice. I like a lot of fits for San Francisco. But it was between himself and Jahdae Barron. I have edge higher on my needs list, so I just kind of leaned into that. But Jahdae Barron's a nice enough fit for San Francisco. Actually, a good fit. Dallas here at pick 12. Kelvin Banks, nope. Ashton Genty has been the draft choice in both of the previous drafts, so just can't do that. That's all right. We're going to go with Walter Nolan. Talked about that yesterday. I think I've done this before in drafts. But regardless, I think that he's such a great fit if they do not go with Ashton Genty, and that's going to start the fall that we talked about. This was kind of part of the inspiration for this mock draft. I talked about this a little bit in, I believe, yesterday's video of, how far does Ashton Genty fall if he starts to fall here, and does a team come up for him or not? So we're exploring that. At pick 13, Miami, Armand Membu, Malachi Starks, no-go here. Calvin Banks Jr., it will be for them. I think just a system fit, it works out for them. They have to address their offensive line, and pick 13 seems like it's a good spot to do so. So that's why, often enough, you will see me going offensive line for them here, if available. Pick 14, we're going to go with the other man here, Armand Membu, still available for Indianapolis. They previously went Michael Williams, Tyler Warren, so couldn't do that. He'll come in as a guard for them, or maybe they'd prefer Tyler Booker. Could be a different pick here for them if they preferred, but I think Armand Membu was a better fit. By the way, I'm developing a habit of pronouncing it Membu, but it might be Membao, could be Membo. I'm not 100% positive yet, and hopefully I haven't tricked myself into just saying it one way and then I'll always pronounce it incorrectly. Let's bring us on to pick 15 for Atlanta, and the phones are ringing off the hook. I don't know that I'm going to be representing how they'll be ringing off the hook, but the phones are ringing, and we have 3 offers coming in from the Los Angeles Chargers, Green Bay, and from Buffalo. Jalen Walker, James Pierce, Malachi Starks, Nick Manwari, Jade Barron, Gray Zabel. This is our short list of players that we don't really want to miss out on, or, we don't want to miss out on that whole list of players is what I'm saying. So it's a pretty good list. Some of those guys might not even go in the first round. We'd rather not fall all the way back to Buffalo at pick 30, but we will listen to the offers. Green Bay picks behind the Chargers, who we can't write off as a threat to draft any one of those names, so we're most willing to deal with the Chargers if we're looking at somewhat of a similar deal. I had the Chargers offering pick 22, 86, and 122 for pick 15. I had the Green Bay Packers offering pick 23, 55 for 15, and 116. And so Atlanta only has these 4 picks, so they are going to value getting more picks and not doing pick swaps a little bit too with this trading process. So that's going to be a little bit of a ding there for the Green Bay Packers. And then the Buffalo Bills offered pick 30, 62, a 2026 second rounder. This might have been a little bit of a strong offer. I might have done my math wrong or something for pick 15. I don't know. I looked at this several times and I kind of figured I didn't. But maybe it'll be for pick 15 and in return a 2026 fourth rounder. We'll just say that that's the case. So 30, 62, future second for future fourth, and 15, of course. The Chargers came in with the lowest offer, but the Falcons would get 2+ picks, which is important to them here. The Packers have a strong offer on the table, but it does not result in additional picks for Atlanta, which is something that they would like. Buffalo has the best offer, but it's a big jump back all the way to 30, and that obviously creates some risk about getting, especially if you have a couple of preferences even within this list that you want. So the first step is going to be to counter the Chargers. That's one that we kind of like the most. Maybe we just want to sweeten this, make it just a little bit better. So we asked them for a 2027 third in exchange for a 2026 fourth on top of the offer. So let's just enter that deal in, look at it, and make the decision if we want to do that. That's 22, 86, 122 for pick 15. And it's a fine offer, but we've got some other offers on the table here that are better, so we are going to ask them if we can exchange a future third for our future fourth there, just to sweeten the pot. And I'm going to say that the Chargers just accept this, so we're going to call back Green Bay and Buffalo and say, sorry, we just accepted a different offer. And the Los Angeles Chargers are now up onto the board, and the Los Angeles Chargers have already drafted Travis Hunter and Matthew Golden, so we cannot take either of them, and I have not revealed who did they come up for. It was one of the big names, and it is Ashton Genty that we're going to have the Los Angeles Chargers coming up to pick 15 for. Ultimately, the Chargers would probably use the 2026 fourth rounder that they got from Atlanta to get back into the fourth round in this year's draft, combine it with either pick 158 or with their own fourth rounder to just get a little bit up there. It did take, a little capital to do that, to get in here. But Ashton Genty could be an absolute, stud, and they like their running backs. So I thought that was a nice fit. It could be interesting if Ashton Genty does begin to fall, to see if and who comes up for him at some point in the draft. Pick 16, Arizona up on the board. And Green Bay Packers, Buffalo. Neither one of them were gunning for the same team position, same player that the Los Angeles Chargers were gunning for, and so the phone bells are ringing again. The phones are ringing again. It's Green Bay and it's Buffalo. There's plenty of reason to stay and pick, but with no 6th or 7th round draft pick. Here you go. So missing a couple of picks here. They do have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th though, so it's not the worst case scenario. They're definitely willing to listen here for some draft offers. I'm going to have Green Bay switch up their offer here a little bit after getting denied. It's going to be pick 2387 and a future 3rd for pick 16. Maybe they learned a little bit of a lesson of what didn't work with their previous offer. And Buffalo, pretty much it's going to be the same offer. It's 1 pick later anyways. So I'm not 100% confident in that Bills compensation once again with that 2nd rounder. Might have been a little bit of a strong offer. That's why I ended up going with returning that 4th rounder back to them. But I've had Buffalo trade in both of the previous 2 mock drafts, and we're trying to do something a little bit different. Currently, their offer, I think, actually, I would probably take if I was Arizona here instead of what Green Bay was offering, even though Green Bay made a little bit of a better offer this time around. So I'm just going to have Green Bay win, just for whatever, who cares? It's just the way that we're going to go is that Green Bay's going to have this trade. Usually I don't even show you other teams that are maybe thinking of coming up, but just kind of show you who wins it if I'm thinking of multiple teams. But yeah, Green Bay is going to move up, 2387, a future 3rd for pick 16 here. So this will be kind of all right on capital this year, give up a little bit of future capital to come up here. And did you figure out who Buffalo and Green Bay were trying to move up for? Of course, it was Tedoroa McMillan. So the Green Bay Packers will shock the nation and go for their ex-receiver to help Jordan Love reach the heights of what is expected of quarterbacks in the frozen tundra. So, yeah, Green Bay not necessarily known for taking quarterbacks in the wide receivers in the 1st round, much less trading up for one, but he falls. And, they just know that that's what they have to do to try and make this thing work out just a little bit better on offense. They have to. So the only player that Green Bay was not allowed to take there was Jihad Campbell. That's going to bring us on to the Cincinnati Bengals pick here at pick 17. They're not allowed to draft Walter Nolan or James Pierce Jr., which James Pierce is still available. And they are going to go with a guard then. We're going to take Tyler Booker. Jalen Walker might be more likely to be chosen here, but maybe not. Tyler Booker also going pretty high in these mock drafts and pretty highly ranked by some people. But I wanted to change it up anyways. Once again, instead of taking another defensive lineman, another edge rusher like James Pierce Jr. in Jalen Walker, went with the guard just to show, another route that Cincinnati could go. Seattle here at pick 18. We went Tyler Booker. We went Mike Green. We can't diversify all the time. I don't know that they go guard anyways. And with how the board works here, it's just kind of, I don't know. I don't know how Seattle's going to feel about this pick. Maybe they're going to move up or down from here because it just feels like a funky spot for them and what their needs are. Unless they think highly of a Jihad Campbell would have been a pick here as well. But end up going with Jalen Walker. Edge rusher can play a little bit of off linebacker as well, which there is a little bit of a need there. He's a possible top 10 talent that isn't an interior offensive lineman. I wrote, John Schneider would be proud of himself for making that choice. That's to bring us on to pick 19, Tampa Bay. They've already taken 2 guards here in Gray Zabel, Armand Membu. So let's change it up. They do need help in the slot, so Emeka Egbuka, slot wide receiver, I should say, is going to be the choice if they don't bring back Chris Godwin. He's definitely going to be on the menu as somebody that they might be interested in taking here at pick 19. Him and some other people will probably be at the top of their draft board at that point in time, assuming he's still available. Pick 20, we've got Denver still up on the board. The phone is ringing mercifully because I didn't really love this spot for Denver right here. So we're happy to hear the phone ringing, and it's going to be Baltimore on the other side, not Buffalo. And they're offering us picks 27, 91, and a future 4th for 20 and a future 5th. So a 4th, 5th swap in the future, and we're going to pick up 91 as well here. And we will accept that. Baltimore going to come up here to draft Jahdae Barron. There's always got to be somebody special available. Jahdae, many believe, to be special, at least in the right situations. And I'm not 100% sure. Baltimore would either feel like he's a very good fit for them or not. So we're going to go with the world where they think that he's a great fit and he's a value here at pick 20. And so they spend up a little bit of capital to get him. At pick 21, we got Pittsburgh on the board. They cannot take Darius Alexander, Walter Nolan. By the way, Baltimore would not have been able to take Shamar Stewart or Luther Burden there at pick 20. They were off the board for them. So Pittsburgh going to take cannot take Darius Alexander or Walter Nolan here. Walter Nolan gone, Darius Alexander. I still wonder how long we'll be projecting him in the first or not. So what we will do for Pittsburgh is going to be Shamar Stewart, and I think I have to explain this one. So he is a project. This gives him time to develop and learn behind some really talented dudes, and that's why you think, well, maybe they don't want to draft Shamar Stewart. But once again, bit of a project. I'm okay having him just maybe be a part of a rotational guy and learning. TJ Watt is on his way to 31 years old already. Currently, he's only under contract through 2025. Even if you give him an extension with an out after like 2026 or 2027, Shamar still could make sense sitting on the bench for 1-2+ years. Once again, he's not going to be sitting on the bench all the time either. I'm not going to go place money on this happening. Remember, we're going through some fun scenarios here. But if it does happen, I will take full credit for coming up with the idea of Shamar Stewart to Pittsburgh. Could make, some sense. Not the most sense, probably, but makes some sense. Let's bring us on to pick 22. Atlanta on the board cannot draft Kenneth Grant or Jalen Walker. I think they're both gone. Maybe Jalen Walker's still around. I don't recall. But instead, they're going to take James Pierce. Patience and moving back works out here for Atlanta. They still had other options on their wish list available as well, several of them. In the event that James Pierce's character issues are a real thing that prevents him from going this highly in the draft, their plan would have worked out just fine by dropping back to 22. They could have dropped back further so far. That brings us on to pick 23 with Arizona. Cannot draft Will Johnson or Shamar Stewart here. And so they're going to end up going for Donovan Jackson. They do have a need on their offensive line yet, and it was a dead heat between Gray Zabel and Donovan Jackson for me. For the Cardinals, I felt like they would value the versatility that Donovan Jackson has to play at the tackle position more than they would value the versatility for Zabel to play at the center position, both of them being drafted as guards. So that was the kind of the tiebreaker for me for which route would Arizona more likely go. I felt like they might value Donovan Jackson better, more highly. Let's bring Minnesota onto the board here at pick 24, and that's it. That is a phone ringing. I don't know why my phone's way up in the sky. That's kind of weird, but I can't hear it, so I'm acting. I'm acting really poorly. Do I look at my? I don't have a watch that can ring. I don't know. So, it's Kansas City on the other line here. And they're going to offer picks 31, 95 to move up to 24. It's that simple. Minnesota Vikings, you can see the capital they have. They're missing quite a bit, so they'll take the extra pick. Kansas City is going to be going down here a little ways, so there's going to be actually more to this move for Kansas City as well. But let's just start out first off. We're seeing Josh Simmons fall a little ways potentially, at least in Kansas City's eyes. Maybe they're feeling pretty good about the medicals on him, and they're going to get aggressive and get their man. So they're going to come up, get Josh Simmons. He's going to be their left tackle for now and into the future. And now they're kind of low on draft picks. They're going to move Kingsley Suamataia to a suitable team who might be interested in him. And, the team that first came to mind, I didn't think about this for too long because Baltimore immediately came to mind as a team who still has a decent amount of capital. A lot of that is later on in the draft, but it's not like we're going to have to trade a second rounder here for Kingsley Suamataia. And they also have that need at left tackle, and they spent their first round draft pick already. So to get a guy who maybe they like, come in, Kingsley Suamataia. I should have done this while I still had Kansas City because I'm not going to have a chance to do this visually. So what it came to, I figured, was Baltimore would give up pick 127 and a future fourth. They don't have a future fourth. Let's just do this. I think I might have been a 2027 fourth for Kingsley Suamataia and a 2026 sixth or a 2026 7th, maybe let's do this, 2027 third for a 2026 fourth and Kingsley Suamataia. I think that's originally what I was going to do, so let's just do that. We'll count that in the books there. So Baltimore Ravens, whatever the exact trade is, the idea is that Kansas City is going to get another pick here in this draft, make up for making that move up when maybe they got aggressive there, but now they're going to move Kingsley because now their left tackle room's like flooded, their tackle room in general. So they got to get rid of somebody. So that's what they're going to do between rounds here. After day one's over, they're going to look to be making that move. Houston up on the board next at pick 25, and I had them go into Emeka Egbuka in both of the other mock drafts this week, so we'll change it up, and they're going to go with Gray Zabel. One way or another, you just got to make sure that your number one mission, I should say, is to make sure that C.J. Stroud is comfortable, and a cleaner pocket should help with that. So that's what we're going to do here. Gray Zabel invest in center guard. They've already got some center guard type guys, so we'll figure out the best five. Hopefully, Gray Zabel should definitely be a portion of that. Going to bring the Los Angeles Rams. They've drafted Josh Simmons in both of the previous drafts. So, had to think out of the box on this one. Ended up going with Jihad Campbell. If the Rams truly are going to reset the clock at quarterback, there is some talk about them moving Matt Stafford. Linebackers typically take a few years to develop, so now would be a good time to start letting one grow and foster within the system, so that way that defense is really there, in 3 years whenever you got that next quarterback in place as well, and then you got that window reopened up already. And you're flying into that window given what they've done with that front seven already. I was going to bring Denver onto the board here at pick 27. After they move back, they're not going to be allowed to take Colston Loveland or Kenneth Grant, who's gone already. But they had a plan here. This is part of the reason why I didn't end up having them take draft earlier and had them move back. Had them being open to trading backwards, is because they're going to take Travion Henderson here at pick 27. Not even the consensus number 2 running back, but I think just maybe a better fit here for Denver's system. But before they grabbed him, they moved back, got some more capital because they were pretty comfortable that he might be available, that kind of thing. That's going to bring Detroit up onto the board. And I surprisingly ended up having them go Trey Amos in both of the mock drafts that I had them do this week, which was very strange because I don't think I've ever done that before. But somehow that in 2 very different ways, that's where I ended up landing for them without planning on that one. But anyways, Matthew Golden, I didn't plan on doubling up anybody, but still, that one was a little bit odd to me that happened. But Matthew Golden here going to be going to Detroit. He's a nice fit with what the Lions already have, and they have to constantly have answers that keep Goff comfortable. So we want to switch things up for defenses in part, and also just one more weapon so Goff does not golf. That's a verb. Golfing is a verb. You don't want to golf. That's a bad thing. That's when you throw 5 picks in one game, and they can't afford him melting down, and just having more weapons around him will help to prevent from a meltdown especially when it's most crucial. You can't be having that. So that's where that investment comes in. It's one line of thinking that maybe they would agree with. They've got other needs as well, though, especially on defense, to help make that unit stronger. Washington, Donovan Jackson, Matthew Golden off of the board. Can't be drafting either one of them. So we're going to go with Malachi Starks here for Washington. I tried mocking some safeties fairly highly in last year's draft to Washington, and they didn't end up doing that. They went other routes, which was perfectly fine. They had a nice draft. But versatile safeties are important to this defense. That was my logic of thinking why they might be drafting safety. But they invested in free agency and safety last year, but only for a short term. So investing in one for the long term here would make a lot of sense to get that going. And Malachi Starks could be that man, they could feel like. Going to bring us on to pick 30 here for Buffalo. And they cannot take Jahdae Barron or a second-round wide receiver. That's what they've done previously this week. So instead, we're going to have to go with Maxwell Harrison. And there are, options like Trey Amos that I have higher up on my board, that are higher up in, I think, consensus board, maybe even. But Maxwell Harrison is one of those guys getting some first-round buzz. But the reason that I went with him here over some of the other cornerbacks simply came down to him being a better scheme fit, a great scheme fit. Buffalo likes to run a lot of zone defense, and Maxwell Harrison is a great zone defender. So it's just a beautiful fit. And that's going to bring Minnesota up onto the board. Tyler Booker, second-round cornerback or running back. Can't do that. But, hey, we're in the first round, and we never did get into that second round, so I think running back's still available. I thought about this one. I ended up going with Omarion Hampton here from Minnesota. So we fall back, we get some more draft capital. It makes it a little bit easier on us to draft a running back. But the question is Omarion Hampton going to be the right guy for this system in Minnesota? I looked at things, I figured out that I felt like it's probably worth it. Here's my write-up. The Vikings use more zone blocking than gap scheme run plays, but they did utilize a fair amount of gap plays last year, and that was with Aaron Jones, who's better at running zone schemes. It was like 104 to 160 something run plays in favor of zone. So it wasn't any kind of crazy difference in the amount that they're running, once again, for a guy who runs better in a zone scheme anyways. Omarion Hampton can be effective in both, but many believe that he's going to be more effective in a gap scheme system. I actually don't mind him very much in either. I think he's fine for both, but I do understand there are some limitations to his game potentially that where he would be better in a gap scheme. That's understandable. So maybe Minnesota would prefer a guy like Caleb Johnson. Maybe they want to get to running more zone, whatever the case. Caleb Johnson, a really good zone scheme running back. But also, I think Omarion is just a better running back, and maybe they want to use more gap and mix in zone, kind of start to change how much gap and zone that they're running. We saw Sean McVay flip styles in his offensive system, and Kevin O'Connell comes from the Sean McVay coaching tree, so he very well could be looking to follow through with that, as once again, it seemed like they kind of pushed the gap scheme maybe more than they had to last year, given their personnel. And that's going to bring us on to pick 32 here for Philadelphia. Cannot take James Pierce Jr. or Donovan Jackson with this pick. That is beautiful, because that does leave us to be able to draft Colston Loveland here. And at last, I can give the Eagles Colston Loveland again. I wrote, congratulations on your next Super Bowl, because Colston Loveland will be a nice addition onto that offense to help make that easier. All right, well, you should have the full mock draft up on the screen. Currently, I really enjoyed this exercise. I really enjoyed the end result. It's way different than anything I've done, anything that I've seen, and that makes sense because I wasn't able to copy some of my other, previous picks that I've done. But it feels like just off enough to where this is how the draft could actually go, whereas we don't, some subtle surprises, some big surprises, but like it's not so far off that it's just impossible. Once again, obviously would not bet on this being the case, but I think it's just janky enough. I really enjoy the end result here. I think it's very interesting, and it was a fun exercise, and I think we learned some things. I hope you did. So, thank you very much for tuning on in. Take care, and I hope you enjoy some of the Combine yourselves. Bye-bye.